interdisciplinary artist working with moving image, photography, sculptural assemblage, and performance. In his practice, Li examines the manifestation of culture in the everyday, finding new meaning to the familiar, making visible the seemingly invisible. Archives play a very active role in Li's work, and they are often used as a point of departure of his projects. His methodology is research-based, often with an emphasis on appropriation and reconfiguration. Li's work is often characterized by problematizing the document as part of the produced operandi. Li has exhibited both nationally and internationally, including the 53rd Venice Biennale, the 3rd Bucharest Biennial, Kashkan Biennial 2007, Titan Park Biennial 2012, EBA 205, Contact Photo Festival 5 Toronto, Photo Esplanade 13 in Madrid, Bildungsmuseum in Gdynia, Sweden, Odenburger Kunstverein in Germany, the Irish Museum of Contemporary Art in Dublin, White Space Seminar A in Beijing, the V&A in London, OCT Love in Shenzhen, Courtauld in Sweden, and San Antonio Art Gallery in Texas, etc. And in 2022, very recently, Dinu was a nominated recipient of the Henry Moore Foundation Artist Award. So I'll hand this name over to Dinu.
I've got some pencils and paper, so it'll be interactive later on where you'll be drawing some things. But before I launch into some slides, can you all get your mobile phones out and go onto Google? I'd just like you to find a painting by Turner, and it's called Slave Ship by Turner. The preeminent British painter, famous for romantic paintings. Turner, Slave Ship. He was also famous for making painting of the sublime tradition. So sky and seascapes were important to him. So you've all found that image, right? Slave ship. Have you looked closely into the sea? Can you? I'll point at someone to tell me what you see in the sea. So, gentlemen with the baseball hat, what do you see in the sea? Sea monsters. There are definitely sea monsters. What else do we see? Yeah, hands. We see sea monsters and hands. Okay. So let's now just leave Turner alone because he becomes relevant right at the end of the presentation. So we'll just leave him alone for now. So let's go to, in our brains, let's go on a voyage to the 1800s. In the 1800s, Britain was wanting to make trade relationships with China. But China was very evolved at the time, and there was nothing from Britain that China wanted. But Britain wanted things from China, and in order to go and get it, Britain was using Indian slaves to build industrial scale factories to develop opium, and then also got Indian slaves to build railway so that the railway leads to China in order to get the opium into China. So in the 1800s, we're talking about the period of 2 opium wars, which then it got the nation hooked on opium, and therefore when Britain diplomats went to China to further in trade, then the Chinese were weakened. So every kind of a trade, China accepted. And one of the trade-offs was that Hong Kong then was taken as one of the colonies, as many other parts of the world. But then if you think about that painting by Turner, what happened was that in Britain, by the mid-1800s, there was a conscience that perhaps we should no longer have African slaves. Let's just begin to imagine that we're no longer using African slaves. But that didn't mean that slavery ended. It just meant that the British then decided, let's just figure out who would replace the African slaves. So the idea of Chinese coolies emerged. Coolies is, if you don't know already, it's supposed to be legalized, low-salaried workers. And just because it's legalized did not mean that people were actually being paid. And so where the Africans were beginning to be freed from the shackles, then the Chinese were directly replacing the Africans. And so Nancy, who sat right there in the red hoodie coat, she's a descendant of coolie immigrants from Fujian who left Xiamen and went to other parts of the world. My own parents are from Guangdong, and Guangdong Chinese coolies went to the Caribbean. So different Chinese from different regions were sent to different parts of the world to do different things. And those slave ships that had previously shipped Africans to different parts of the world, the same ships were then taking Chinese people on voyages to different parts of the world in the same way. And the people who were then on these voyages, the pirates who took them from A to B, they called it pig trade, as if though they were livestock. And something quite interesting about when they were taken on the ships, those human beings were also stamped. There's something interesting about stamping, and my interested in clubland and music. When you go to a club and you're dancing and you're high because you've taken some substance, you might want to take a break. When you take a break, you have to go outside. When you go outside and you need to get back in, somebody's going to put a stamp on your arm so you can get back in. When else do you think that you've ever experienced having a stamp on something? I'll give you 60 seconds to have a think. I'll point at someone to give me an answer. When else do you get stamped? Borders, passports, right? Get stamped. And I'm trying to present a conversation about complicated international relationships and music and art. And early generation reggae musicians. So you've got the vinyl. You've got the vinyl, and then you've got the label. You've got the vinyl and you've got the label. Early day reggae musicians, their labels were sometimes just blank white labels. Sometimes they were stamped. There's something interesting about African slaves, Chinese coolie slaves, stamped. And there's something really interesting about labels being stamped. So then the Chinese coolies were going to different parts of the world, and the ones that I'm interested in were the ones who went to the Caribbean. So they went to the Caribbean to do the things that the Africans would have done, which is to work in plantation or mining. And when they're in plantation, they're working on sugarcane plantations or cane that would then turn into furniture. And this is where I need to show some slides, I think. And so you've all been into the show, right? You've all had a look. And you've noticed I've used rope a lot. And you've noticed that I use cable ties a lot throughout the show. And if you really examine the exhibition, you will notice that I've also used a ratchet strap somewhere in the exhibition. So, ropes and straps. So, you've seen I've used ropes. There's ropes everywhere. When reggae artists perform, what they really want to do is build massive sound systems because they want to be heard. Also, they want a lot of bass. And so here's an image of a sound system, and you see ropes, and you see ratchet straps to avoid the sound system falling apart. Yeah? So if you go to Notting Hill, you get a sound system like that, and you get a ratchet strap directly from the lorry straight onto the road. Straps everywhere. And here's an image of a European on a slave ship making sure that the stamped Chinese coolie is not going to jump over and try to swim home. And you see some ropes on the ship. So I'm referencing things. I'm referencing archives. And then here's the thing about labels. So there's the label. And what this is speaking to is speaking to how when reggae emerged, DJs were not ready to play that music. And so if the reggae artists were trying to be professional, to do professional labeling, it's just a waste of money. If they're trying to make 1 million copies, DJs aren't playing that. So they may as well just do it in a very amateurish way. Hand-signed, stamped, in that sort of fashion. Can you all see that? And I've referenced that, I'll show you in a minute. And then the thing about Chinese coolies working on plantation, then here's an image of a coolie. You can see some ropes. You can see what they've done with the cane. Apart from furniture, they make those baskets. And so when you're walking in my exhibition, you see cane being used, twisted, contorted, entwined with hair extension. So that it's making this absurd voyage of its own. Entangled. And then that led me to really think about working in collaboration with musicians to make my own reggae and dub music. And because of all of this reference, then I posted on Facebook to to an international reggae-loving community to try and find people to go and collaborate with me to go and make some music. And I was just inundated with tons and tons of musicians and DJs who, some of them already had music that I could use, or other people were suggesting let's go and work together. And we're talking about people from San Francisco, LA, New York, Tokyo. I was just inundated, and it was just took me weeks to apologize to thousands of people that I can't work with them because I was being very specific. And the more specific I was, the more I ended up with a very special human being to work with. So I ended up with this guy on the top, there's me at the bottom. So his name is Keith West, and he's in his house. I'm at my university office after hours, and we are in recording. And Keith West is special because he's a descendant of slaves. And Keith West is also multiracial. Keith West has played at the Notting Hill Carnival for 20 years. His father and godfather created the Notting Hill Carnival procession. If it hadn't been for his father and godfather, there would be no such thing as a procession at the carnival. And here's the thing that's really quite absurd. The godfather who invented the procession received an MBE award by the Queen. If you have forgotten what the MBE means, do you want to just Google it? It's absurd to receive that kind of an award. So there we are recording, and you also see in the exhibition feathers, right? You see pheasant feathers. So the godfather and father and Keith West, Notting Hill Carnival processions, you see pheasant feathers in the procession, but you see it in Chinese opera. And then I'm just going to go and take us back to Turner and slave ship. So you've seen a painting made in the 1800s where Turner and the public were beginning to feel we should no longer have black slaves that were then taken over by Chinese coolies. Something then very interesting happened in terms of black music album cover design. So before I show you those ones, I'll show you these ones. So for quite a period, so this is a British label, Greensleeved. For a long time, when reggae artists wanted to produce and sell, they found it not possible to have photographic portraits of themselves, because they realized that if they had photographic portraits of themselves on the cover, it just wouldn't sell. No matter how much you want to dance to that music, it wouldn't sell. So they were using illustrations instead. So that's one thing about that. But the interesting thing about Turner, slave ship, and what I want to show you next is very interesting. So then in the 1970s, I'm going beyond reggae now. Now I'm going to funk and jazz funk and jazz fusion. So I think some of these artists you probably do know. But in the 1970s, in the black music community, there was an obsession about depicting themselves in spaceships, not slave ships. Earth, Wind and Fire. Who wouldn't like to listen to Earth, Wind and Fire, right? They're in outer space. There's a dub one. Sun Ra. Space is the place. Parliament. Mothership connection. Sun Ra. A space odyssey. And then there's me and Keith West, knowing all of these references. Keith West being a descendant. I'm a kind of a descendant. And we've made an album cover for our music. And there's a speaker cone, and the speaker cone is turned upside down, so that initially it looks like a spaceship. And there is this obsession about space travel and voyage, because if you're black and there's no space on Earth or at sea where you feel safe, where else are you supposed to go? You have to go in your imagination and go to outer space where that feels a lot safer. And that's the music. I'm just going to play a track, and this is where we need to distribute some pen and paper, so we do a little children's workshop here. So this, what I want to do is play this. It's not reggae. It's jazz funk in a fusion sort of way. Lonnie Liston Smith, and the album is called Expansions, so the word already tells you everything. And I heard this the first time when I went to the Notting Hill Carnival when I was about 20, and it played out of a sound system in a street corner, and everybody was drawn to Lonnie Liston Smith. And if you've been to the Notting Hill Carnival, you will sort of know this. There's a lot of police presence. If you can just visualize what a police riot van looks like. So a police riot van, often the front windscreen will have another screen, which is a metal cage, in case some rock hits the windscreen. So there's a windscreen and then there's a metal cage. So they're seeing the world through this cage. And on the side and the back of a police riot van, there are stripy warning signs stuck on the van. And when you go into that exhibition there, inside that room, you see warning tape and you see screens, but the screens are kind of see-through. So there's a lot of references. But also when that track was being played, Expansions, there were police helicopters with their searchlight just over our heads and riot vans everywhere. And it just made the whole thing feel like a nightclub with a spotlight. And we just loved it. And we were just, the more that they were shining lights on us, the more that we were bouncing on the street. And the sound system was huge and the vibe was just really coming through. But it's such a spectacular track. And I just want to play you the introduction. I just want you to identify, I'd just like you to identify what are these instruments that have been assembled together to make us move. Right? I just want you to try and identify it. There's about 7 or 8. I'll play it, so we just distribute these pens and paper. If you don't know the word for the instrument, just draw the shape. Right? We're doing a children's workshop. And maybe you share it, because we haven't got enough. So 1 pencil and 1 sheet for a pair, or you've got your own. So we just spread it this way and go around. I'll get myself ready here. And if you are a hardcore DJ, I apologise for this record player. This is a £20 job. It's not going to give you a lot of bass, but yeah, that's what we're dealing with. So, I just need you to pass that around so that everyone's got a chance. And then I'm going to play the introduction to this track. where Lonnie Liston Smith is going to take us out of space on a voyage. Everyone got pen and paper? Pencil? Just nice and quick, share it if you want. So there should be 7 or 8 distinctive sounds that you hear that Lonnie Liston Smith assembles together in the same way I've assembled things inside that room. Everything's assembled. And he's made an assemblage of sounds. And he's going to take us on a voyage to outer space. We ready? Yeah. I'm taking you up until the point of the synthesizer, the electronic bit. So we go from the beginning up to that moment where he's got that elongated sound from the synthesizer. So if you don't know the names of the instruments, just draw them out. I'll do it again. I think we're too fast here, aren't we? I think it's the wrong speed. Okay, let's do it again. Write them down, the 7 or 8. Do it one more time. Such a good... Don't worry, don't get stressed. Don't get stressed. You're not getting marked. You're not getting marked. Just have a good time. Just trust me, have a good time. You're not going to fail, alright? So you want to dance already, don't you? Within seconds, he's got you already. So, the thing is, I've been online and I've looked at his album covers to check how many different sounds, and he has been a little bit inconsistent. Sometimes he says one thing, sometimes another thing. It's not that he's trying to trick us. Sometimes, as human beings, we just sometimes forget ourselves. Like I've forgotten how many things I put in that show, so it's just human being errors. So he's made some errors, so I can't be absolutely sure. So I'm actually wanting your help. What do you think the first sound is?
Triangle.
Huh?
A triangle.
Triangle. I think it's a triangle. What's the second sound?
Guitar.
What kind?
Bass.
Bass. Bass. What's the third one?
Maracas.
Huh? Maracas. And where does the maracas come from?
Caribbean.
Before that?
Spain.
Before that?
Africa.
Yeah? Yeah, that's true, yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. What's the fourth one? Is it the bongos? Could be bongo.
The fourth one? That's not the bongo. I'm sure it's the fourth.
There needs to be who identified a wood block. Wood block. Can you tell everyone what a wood block looks like?
No.
It's a block of wood which is almost the size of a brick. So it's a long wood, but it's got a slit in the middle. The slit is very slim, and you hit it. The slit, if it's not for the slit, you don't get the vibe, because then it's a dull sound. With that slit, the sound vibrates across the slit and it comes out. Crucial. It's an African thing. Yeah.
I don't know the name of it.
Pencil sharpener.
It's a ball. It's a some ropes.
So there's a wood block, there's a bongo for sure, there's a bongo. And then what's after that? Drums. The classic drum kit that you see the Beatles play, that classic drum. And then the maracas comes back.
Yeah.
And is that it? Is there one more thing?
Synthesizer.
Huh? Then the synthesizer
synthesizer.
that elongated sound. So you've got these things that in the beginning, if you lay them out on the table, they look disparate shapes, and you're thinking, what's a triangle got to do with the maracas? Right? They're completely different shapes. But when people know what they're doing, and they assemble these objects together to make sound, it makes you go on a voyage. And what they want to do is go on a voyage to space, not Earth. There's nowhere safe on Earth. I think that's all I want to say. So what are your next questions?
So any immediate questions, you're very welcome to ask now, or at the end there will be another
Yeah.
opportunity.
Are there any immediate questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that you're kind of the descendant of Chinese Buddhists. Can you elaborate on that?
I'm speaking in general because I come from. My parents are from Guangdong province, and Chinese Buddhists are from different parts of China. But the part from China that went to the Caribbean, the region where my ancestors come from. And so there are the ones who were stamped who went elsewhere, and the ones who were not stamped also went elsewhere, because there was this notion at the time that if you land in San Francisco, or you land here, or you land there, then you're going to have a good life. So I'm a descendant of people who had gone away elsewhere, and my grandparents went to San Francisco, building railways. So, and then they went back to Guangdong province to build schools. So yeah, there is a direct link there. Yeah.
And do you know the condition on which the Chinese people were hired as intellectual laborers? Because China at the time wasn't colonized by the British. I'm just wondering how the British could actually manage to recruit people?
Because the opium weakened the negotiation. And if you're dependent on opium, if you are dependent on it, you're just going to say yes to everything. We'll take Hong Kong, yes, give me some opium. We need some labourers, okay, give me some opium. I'll give you opium, you give me 1,000 men. I'll give you opium if you give me opium. Okay, of course. I just need some opium. So, it's a very easy transaction. Once people are hooked, when you're hooked, you're hooked. Sarah Champion. Hello.
This is surreal.
Sarah Champion used to be director many years ago.
Built this place.
With mortar and hammer and bricks and everything else. And Sarah Champion, are you still a Labour MP?
I am.
Sarah Champion's a Labour MP. And Sarah Champion and I tried to dance together one time in Shanghai.
The most humiliating experience I've ever had. 2,000 people in a room, 2 arrogant people. We walked up to the top stage and looked in each other's eyes and both realised the other one couldn't dance. We had to do a 5 minutes. But the best photographer I know.
So, any other immediate questions?
If you have any more questions, we always have time.
Or did I say some things that did not make sense? Was I being far-fetched by bringing Turner together with spaceships? Was I being completely absurd? Or do you think? I just watched it together in the car just now before. I thought, what should I say? And I've just put it together. Does it make sense? Or does it really feel a bit random?
No, it was like a journey. It took us through a journey.
So
From the 18th century.
it felt reasonable. Did it feel reasonable that I would put Turner at the beginning and spaceships at the end? Great, that's good. Yeah, job done.
It didn't open any doors for us to look at this, look at that, and try to connect them together.
Right,
Because they are connected.
right.